Today's video we're going to be working on Te He Prometido, the arrangement that we do in the academy and in the music classes. If you look at the sheet music, first thing you look at is the title. Second thing you look at is the key signature. So if you look at the key signature for violin, there are no sharps, there are no hashtags, there's nothing there right after the treble clef, there's no flats. So that means that you don't play any sharps on the violin. So that's not necessarily easy to do as a violin player, as a beginner violin player. So this song, that is why this song is a level 2 song. It's not easy, it's not hard, but it is intermediate. It's tricky. So let me show you what that means. So first note, if you look at the very first note, is an A, not the open A string, but 3 fingers on the A string. That's the first note. Second note is going down A, G. So all you do is take a finger off, and then you look very closely. It doesn't keep going down. It skips a note. It skips the F, and it goes to the E, the open E. So put it all together. That's the first measure of Te He Prometido. Short, long, long, super long. All right, so how many... if I play it, you're going to know how it goes. Te he prometido. Right, but what I want you to do is be able to read it. Remember, more importantly than learning this song is learning how to read it. So, first note, let's call that short. It's a short note. It's an 8th note. So we just play, and then you go on to the next note right away, which is what we're doing. The second note is twice as long as the first one we just played. That one, let's call it a long. It's twice as long. So if we break it up, it's, because remember it's twice as long, so one of these, for the next note, it should be 2 of those. Like that. All right, and then the third note, how long is that? Okay, well, let's start with the it's a tie, it's tied, right? And a tie means it's not a slur. It's not a slur because it's the same note. If it was a different note, like E and F, or F and E, that's a slur, but it's the same note. So what we have to do is we have to add the values of each note. Let's start with the longest note there, and it is a half note. Okay, the second note of that tie is a half note. That one is worth 2 beats. The first part is only an 8th note. That one is worth half a beat. So total beats there is 2.5. How the heck do we count that? Okay. We have to use subdivisions. So we have to subdivide. What that means is that instead of counting this, instead of doing that, we have to double it. In our heads, we have to double it. Instead of counting the beats like a metronome does, 1, 2, 3, 4, we have to count 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and that'll help us determine exactly how long that third note is. Okay, the first note we have there at the beginning is 1, because remember now we're counting like the first note. The first note is an 8th note, so now we're counting 8th notes. Every tap is an 8th note. So at the beginning, it's just going to be 1 tap. And then the next note, note number 2, that quarter note, that G, that's going to be 2 taps. There's 2 8th notes fit in that quarter note. Bam, bam. And then you go on to the next note. 1, 1, 2, and then the next note. Now, how much is the next note? So if a quarter note has 2, a half note is going to have 4. And because it's tied to another 8th note, it's going to be a total of 5. 5 subdivisions, or 5 8th notes. Bum, bum, bum. Bum, 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 bum. 1, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then the next note. Bum, 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 bum. And that's how you subdivide, and that's how you figure out the rhythm. Remember, the trickiest part of reading sheet music is always going to be the rhythm. You're gonna get older. You're gonna get better. It's always the rhythm that's gonna mess you up. The rhythm is the trickiest, and that's why you have to be able to do this on your own. When I give you this music and you go home and practice it, you got it. All you have to do is subdivide. Bum, 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 bum. So it's okay to sit down with a pencil and maybe write down, not the fingerings, because you don't need that anymore. You know that this is a 3, this is a 2, this is a 0. You know the notes. You just don't know the rhythm. So what we can do is write down the subdivision. First note would be a 1. See, this one would be a 1. This one would be 2. There's 2 ticks now. We're subdividing. Bum, bum. And then this one would be 1 plus, we said it was 4, so a total of 5. 1, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Luckily, this measure, for us, is the same thing as this measure. So all we have to do is repeat. So, bum, bum, bum. And then once you have the rhythm, you can play it slower or faster. And then play it on your violin. Okay, so I'm gonna play on the violin with the subdivisions on the bow. Hopefully you can hear them. Can you hear the subdivisions that I should be counting in my head? And then you play it faster and faster, and then it starts sounding like Te He Prometido. And that's how you figure out the rhythm without having to hear it first. Because most of my students, I give you the sheet music, and those of you who know how to read, the first thing you ask is, how does it go? How does it go? Can you play it for me? I shouldn't have to play it for you to figure out how it goes. The hard work is doing it on your own. Bum, bum, and subdividing. And again, you subdivide here, you figure it out here. The next time you see that rhythm, it won't take you that long to figure it out. Let's start at measure number 3. Now at measure number 3, we don't have to subdivide anymore because all the rhythms fall on beats. And so it's a dotted half note. Dotted half notes are 3 beats. It's the note A. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. And that last note is a tremolo. So for the tremolo, what we have to do is we have to shake our wrist. Okay? Try to do your wrist as much as possible. Don't do your arm so much. It's just the wrist. And just try to wave the wrist back and forth so that it sounds like this. But with what note? With G. So low second finger. And for how long do we do that? Okay, well, there's a tie in there. You see that big tie. And it's a whole note, which you know that it's 4 beats, tied to a half note, which you know that it's 2 beats. So 4 plus 2 is 6. So you can count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then you stop. Okay? Or you can do 4 and 2. You can count however you want. You can do 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2. And that's actually the correct way to count, because you still, after you stop, you still have to keep counting the rest of the measures, and so on and so on. Yeah, that is the beginning of Te Prometido, okay? One more thing to point out before letter A, right after your tremolo, so you're going to count 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, right there. What do you have right there? So that is a half rest. And a half rest is 2 beats, just like the half note. Half rest is 2 beats. Now, how do you know whether it's a half rest or a whole rest? And I always like to say that the Abraham Lincoln hat is 2. That, to me, looks like an Abraham Lincoln hat. So you have the bottom line and then the hat on the top. That's the Abraham Lincoln hat. That is 2. When you see it upside down, it's not the Abraham Lincoln hat, so that would be 4. And you have both of those rests in the song. Look for them. Find the half rests and find the whole rests. Some are facing up. The half rest is facing up. The whole rest is facing down. Okay? And so you don't get confused. The Abraham Lincoln hat is 2. Okay? But the name of that rest is not Abraham Lincoln hat. The name of that rest is a half rest. And then we're at letter A. Okay? So let's go ahead and play along with me the beginning. Let's do really slow. Bum, bum, bum. 1, 2, ready, go. 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 2, 4. 1, 2. Te Prometido. And then we're at letter A. And that is the beginning of Te Prometido. If you're in the intermediate classes, if you're in class 3 and 4, you can go on and practice the adornos, play the adornos. They're not that hard. Let's go ahead and play the end. So class 1, class 2, class 3, and class 4, you always play the beginning and the end, that's for sure. So let's play the end. Let's figure out where the end starts. So the ending is the whole bottom line. It goes like this. So just like the beginning. Just like the beginning with the twist, with the... So why don't you go ahead and practice that first? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah, and technically the last note is twice as long as the other 4. Sort of like that. But what the maestros will probably want is for you to put a little staccato marking on that last note and pa 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 pam and just play it short. That's most likely how it should sound. Like that. Okay, so let's do the whole measure 42. It's the whole bottom line. It starts just like it does at the beginning. And it's basically the second ending. Bum, 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 bum. Here we go. 1, 2, ready, go. Right. One last thing before we end the video. There's a new note here for the rhythm. So everything is the same. Bum, 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 bum. Right here, this is a new rhythm because it's a little bit different. So the new stuff starts right here. How long is that note? Well, it's 1.5 beats. It's a dotted quarter note. It's 1.5 beats. If you're subdividing, and remember, subdividing means that instead of this, you're doing this. If you're subdividing in your head, how many subdivisions is this? How many eighth notes fit in here? How many eighth notes fit in a dotted quarter note? The answer is 3. Bum, 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 bum. And then you go, and then you can play the ending, which is right. And you really don't have to subdivide that because it's simple. 4, they're eighth notes. They're 16th notes. Sorry. Ba 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 bum. Ba 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 ba. So 4 of them in one beat. Ta 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 ta. 1, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3. And that's the end. Okay? And what I just counted right now with the 1, 2, 3, that's the subdivisions. That's how many eighth notes fit in each of the notes that I'm playing. And the reason why we do that and why we have to subdivide is to figure out how the rhythm goes. And we do that for tricky rhythms, for rhythms that are on upbeats, for rhythms, for syncopation, which for notes that don't fall evenly on beats, okay? Sometimes a note falls in between one beat and in between the other beat, and it can get a little confusing unless you subdivide. That's how you'll figure it out on your own. So for Te Prometido, practice subdividing. You could subdivide throughout the whole song. You can go back and forth between subdividing and not subdividing, or you can stay in subdivision the whole time. But sometimes it gets harder. Sometimes it's easier not to subdivide, you know. If you're playing quarter notes, if you're playing this, here's the beat. You're playing quarter notes. Why would you subdivide? You're doing a little bit more work than you have to. So I like to go back and forth. When the rhythms are tricky, you subdivide. When it's easy, quarter notes and half notes and whole notes, you don't subdivide because it gets harder to do that. You go back and forth between normal beats, normal quarter notes, and subdivisions. Tricky rhythms, easy rhythms. Okay, and that's Te Prometido. Make sure you also practice the C scale for the song. C scale. And if you are in class 3 or 4, practice the C scale 2 octaves. All right.